Jaguars are the only big cat in the Americas and the third biggest cat in the world after tigers and lions. These powerful cats were worshipped as gods in many ancient South American cultures, and representations of the jaguar show up in the art and archaeology of the pre-Columbian cultures across the Jaguar's range. The word jaguar comes from the indigenous word jaguar, which means the killer, which overcomes its prey in a single bound. The jaguar is a compact and well-muscled animal. Rainforest jaguars are generally darker and considerably smaller than those found in open areas, possibly due to the fewer large herbivorous prey in forest areas. Jaguars grow to be about 1.6 to 1.8 meters, or 5.3 to 6 feet in length, and stand about 67 to 76 centimeters, or 27 to 30 inches tall at the shoulders. On average, jaguars weigh around 36 kilograms, or 80 pounds, but larger specimens have been recorded as weighing 131 to 151 kilograms, or 288 to 333 pounds. Historically, these cats ranged from virtually the entire South American continent, all the way to the southern half of the United States. Fossilized remains of jaguars have been found in Missouri, dating back to the Ice Age. As recent as the early 20th century, jaguars could be found as far north as the Grand Canyon and as far west as Monterey, California. Currently, jaguars have been restricted to a fraction of their previous range. Jaguar populations in the United States are now virtually non-existent, with only a few sightings in the past decade or so. Their current range stretches from Mexico to South America, but that range is highly fragmented. This means that jaguar populations have large spaces between them where no jaguars are found. This fragmented habitat prevents jaguar populations from breeding with one another and reduces genetic diversity. Jaguars can be found most frequently in dense, flooded rainforests. This could be due to preference and shy nature, or it could be because dry habitats have been rapidly developed in their range. While they are most commonly found near water sources and in rainforests, jaguars have been spotted in and have historically inhabited grasslands, subtropical forests, and deciduous forests. The majority of a jaguar's hunting is done down on the ground, but they are also known to hunt for prey both in the water and from the trees, from where the jaguar can easily ambush its prey, often killing it with one powerful bite. Jaguars have a more powerful bite than any other cat on the planet, and the second most powerful bite of all mammals. Their jaws are powerful enough to deliver a deadly bite that punctures the skull and the brain, which is exactly how jaguars kill. They may not be the biggest, strongest, or deadliest killers in the felid family, but when it comes to biting, jaguars take the cake. Medium-sized mammals make up the majority of the jaguar's diet, including deer, capybara, peccaries, and tapirs, which they stalk in silence through the dense jungle. When in the water, jaguars hunt turtles, fish, and even small caiman when the opportunity presents itself. The jaguar is known to be a formidable and aggressive hunter, and is thought to eat more than 80 different animal species to supplement its diet. With growing human settlements, the jaguar has also been blamed by ranch owners for stealing their livestock, particularly in areas that encroach on the jaguar's territory. Although this elusive animal spends most of its time either resting in the safety of the trees or hunting in the dense undergrowth, jaguars are animals that love to be nearby water, such as floodplains and slow-moving rivers, and they rarely venture into arid, more desert-like areas. The jaguar is an excellent swimmer and can move through the water at a surprising speed, particularly when in pursuit of prey. While the jaguar employs the deep throat bite and suffocation technique typical among Panthera, it prefers a killing method unique amongst cats. It pierces directly through the temporal bones of the skull between the ears of the prey with its canine teeth, piercing the brain. This may be an adaptation to cracking open turtle shells. Following the late Pleistocene extinctions, armored reptiles such as turtles would have formed an abundant prey base for the jaguar. The skull bite is employed with mammals in particular. With reptiles such as the caiman, the jaguar may leap on the back of its prey and sever the cervical vertebrae, immobilizing the target. The jaguar is a stalk and ambush rather than a chase predator. The cat will walk slowly down forest paths, listening for and stalking prey before rushing or ambushing. The jaguar attacks from cover, and usually from a target's blind spot, with a quick pounce. The species' ambushing abilities are considered nearly peerless in the animal kingdom by both indigenous people and field researchers, and are probably a product of its role as an apex predator in several different environments. The ambush may include leaping into the water after prey, as a jaguar is quite capable of carrying a large kill while swimming. Its strength is such that a carcass as large as a heifer can be hauled up a tree to avoid flood levels. On killing prey, the jaguar will drag the carcass to a thicket or other secluded spot. It begins eating at the neck and chest rather than the midsection. The heart and lungs are consumed, followed by the shoulders. As with many other cat species, the jaguar is a solitary animal, except for the first couple of years that jaguar cubs spend with their mother. Males are particularly territorial, and although their home range will overlap those of several females, they will defend their patch fiercely from other males. Jaguars mark their territories with urine by scratching marks onto trees and asserting themselves with growling vocal calls. Due to the large size and dominant nature of the jaguar, there are no other wild animals that are known to actually consider it as prey. As you can see, jaguars are extremely strong cats and have amazing qualities. But can they cope in Africa among lions, hyenas, and many other powerful animals? There is plenty of game in Africa, and they could certainly adapt to the climate. But adding another apex predator into a new environment is most often disastrous. To avoid competition, some predators evolved to be nocturnal. Others took to the mountains. Some are larger, some are faster. Some hunt in packs, others are solitary. It's a balance that should not be disturbed. Because jaguars are apex predators in the Americas, the biggest issue would be the megafauna. But the Nile crocodiles, lions, hyenas, and African wild dogs would teach the jaguars manners. Not only predators, but everything in Africa appears to have an attitude issue, whether it's rhinos, hippos, baboons, or the mighty elephant. Jaguars coexisted with lions, short-faced bears, dire wolves, and Smilodon in the Americas 10,000 years ago, and survived because of their resourcefulness. Climbing as well as leopards, strong enough to hunt big game like lions, swimming like crocodiles. With a variety of ecosystems in Africa from desert to rainforest, the jaguars would thrive. Jaguars can be found in a variety of habitats throughout the Americas. For predators, survival necessitates excellent hunting techniques. When sea turtles lay their eggs on beaches, jaguars kill and devour them. However, many other jaguars are dining on the same beach, and there is no territorial fighting between them, which is unusual for solitary cats. They bite into the skulls of the caimans, stick their tails in the water to grab fish, are strong enough to kill domestic cattle, tapirs, and anaconda. Jaguar hunt monkeys, sloths, and iguanas in trees, and are agile enough to catch birds. They used to slay elephant-sized giant ground sloths by themselves during the Ice Age. They kill, unlike any other cat, by biting into the skull and paralyzing their prey with a bite force of 2,000 psi. As a result, their kills would be faster, quieter, and more efficient than a suffocating lion or leopard. Another interesting hypothetical option would be for jaguars to eventually mate with leopards, resulting in a natural hybrid, or take on the niche that tigers occupy in Asia by growing as large as or larger than lions. Though lions would dominate until they evolve, Even a highly confident male leopard can cause confusion and uneasiness in a lion, especially when combined with a male jaguar that can grow to the size of a lioness. Although, because lions, hyenas, and wild dogs are all pack hunters, the odds are always in their favor. Jaguars, like leopards, are strong enough to cache their kills up trees, which could solve that problem. Hunting animals that no other predator would, such as crocodiles, would also be a game changer. Alligators are only found in the Americas and China. They do not live in Africa like their crocodilian cousins. Here, we try to understand why there are no alligators in Africa. Alligators are large reptiles that belong to the order Crocodilia. They are carnivores that start life eating small invertebrates such as insects, snails, and worms, as well as small vertebrates such as birds. As they grow, they feed on larger animals including small mammals, other reptiles, bigger fish, and deer. They occupy freshwater habitats such as lakes, ponds, marshes, and swamps. Today, there are two species of alligator. The American alligator lives in the southeastern states and parts of Mexico, with the biggest populations in Florida and Louisiana. Southern Florida is the only place where alligators and crocodiles live side by side. The other species of alligator is the Chinese alligator, which only lives in the Yangtze River and its surrounding tributaries. This is the most endangered crocodilian, and in 2015, it was estimated that there were less than 180 individuals left in the wild. Incredibly, alligators haven't changed much in appearance for millions of years. Whilst most of today's animals have extinct ancestors that looked hugely different, this is not true of alligators. In fact, if we took a walk in North America millions of years ago, we would see the same alligators we are familiar with today. The crocodilians have kept their morphological and ecological similarities for almost 100 million years. Their rate of genetic evolution has been much slower than that of mammals. This is largely because they live longer, and therefore the time between generations and the passing of genetic material is much longer than smaller animals, such as some mammals. When we think of alligators, we also think of crocodiles. They are similar in appearance, although alligators have a more U-shaped broader snout, a shorter head, and gray or darker coloring, and their lower teeth are not visible if their mouth is closed. Furthermore, whilst crocodiles can tolerate salt water due to a specialized gland in their mouths, alligators can only survive in fresh water. Crocodiles live throughout the globe. Today's 18 different species of crocodile are found in North, South, and Central America, Asia, Australia, and Africa. The two species of alligator are only native to the USA, Mexico, and China. Alligators do not live in Africa. So, why is this? Especially when their cousins, the crocodiles, are so widely dispersed across the globe. To answer this, we need to look back at the evolutionary history of alligators. We can try to determine where they originated from and why they never settled in Africa in the same way that crocodiles did. Crocodilians is an order of reptiles that includes both crocodiles and alligators, as well as caimans and gharials. Both crocodilians and birds belong to the clade of archosaurs. This group included flying dinosaurs, pterosaurs, and other non-avian dinosaurs. During the Jurassic period, between 201 and 145 million years ago, dinosaurs dominated the land, whilst crocodilian ancestors dominated the water. These crocodilians consisted of a much more diverse group of animals than those found today. Some adapted to feed on insects, and others solely on fish. Some were adapted to take down large prey, and others were even herbivores, surviving by eating only plant matter. Looking back at the Triassic and Jurassic periods, the earliest crocodilians were the Protosuchians. These were relatively small reptiles that were less than a meter or 3 feet in length. Their fossils have been found in Europe, Asia, and South America. None have been found in Africa. Emerging from these and diversifying into many different forms were the Mesosuchians. These included some crocodilians with paddle-like feet for expert swimming, and some were adapted for eating shellfish. Their fossils have been predominantly found in South America and Europe, with one being found in Algeria, Africa. Following these unique animals were the Eusuchians, which appeared in the late Cretaceous period about 80 million years ago. From these Eusuchians, all modern-day crocodilians evolved. The crocodile and alligator lineages were thought to have split from one another and diverged about 80 million years ago. This was during the late Cretaceous period. And whilst the mass extinction event that wiped out the dinosaurs killed off 75% of the planet's flora and fauna, remarkably, crocodiles and alligators survived. They were among the very few four-legged animals over 25 kilograms that survived, and they have remained largely unaltered, at least superficially, ever since. We know when the lineages of crocodiles and alligators split, but it's unclear where the huge range of crocodilians was living. It remains unclear why there are no alligators in Africa. The geographical data for these prehistoric beasts is very sparse. Fossils have been found all over the world. During the Jurassic and Triassic eras, when the very earliest crocodilians were emerging, Africa was still connected to South America. These two continents split some 140 million years ago. This likely meant the early crocodilians were present on both continents at the time of the split. By the end of the Mesozoic era, 66 million years ago, the three main branches of crocodilians had diverged. These were the Alligatoridae, which includes alligators and caimans, the Crocodilidae, which includes crocodiles, dwarf crocodiles, and false gharials, and the Gavialidae, which includes the gharial. Fossil evidence of common ancestors of alligators and crocodiles has been found across the globe. They were present in Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Americas. One of the earliest known ancestors of today's alligators was around 250 million years old. This creature was Brachycampsa montana. It was a carnivorous reptile about 8 to 10 feet long found in the United States and Canada. It had short teeth and an incredibly powerful bite. It is thought to have died out just before the mass extinction event 66 million years ago, but not before giving rise to the lineage that would lead to today's alligators. As already mentioned, the two extant species of alligator are the American alligator and the Chinese alligator. There is much debate in the scientific world regarding the evolutionary history of alligators and their relatives. As more data comes to light, particularly with the advances in molecular and DNA sequencing technologies, we will likely see a more complete conclusion of their evolution. Chinese alligators are thought to have evolved from their American relatives during the later Tertiary period, which was between 66 and 2.6 million years ago. Due to their saltwater intolerance, some scientists believe the alligators must have crossed into China using the land. Despite the unfavorable climatic conditions, they conclude that alligators would have used the Bering Land Bridge to make this journey. Most recent research, however, suggests that ancient forms of alligators could tolerate saltwater, meaning they were able to disperse throughout the globe more easily without inhibition by these saltwater barriers. Alligators and caiman then diverged from each other during the late Cretaceous, 100 to 66 million years ago. Caiman spread southwards and dispersed across Central and South America. Although the geographical location of the earliest alligators is not completely determined, and therefore the reason why they do not live in Africa is not totally clear, scientists have now mapped the evolutionary tree of the Crocodylus genus. They have found that the American species of crocodile are the most closely related to Africa's Nile crocodile. Evidence suggests that the American crocodiles split from their African relatives 7 million years ago. This divergence occurred long after the African continent split from the Americas, 130 million years ago. The conclusion the scientists came up with is that the crocodiles swam the Atlantic Ocean and found their new home in North, Central, and South America. Crocodiles can survive up to 6 months without eating. They can tolerate and thrive in salt water, and females can store sperm for several months after mating. These characteristics suggest they could have made the Atlantic crossing and colonized the Americas after the long swim. It is understood that these crocodiles gave rise to the 4 New World species living in the Americas today. Morlet's crocodile, the Cuban crocodile, the Orinoco crocodile, and the American crocodile. Mapping the alligator's evolutionary history is not completely clear. Fossils of its prehistoric ancestors have been found across the globe, but they don't seem to have lived in Africa. Diversification of their ancient relatives happened before the breakup of the supercontinent Gondwana. Those that dispersed and spread into North America diversified and evolved into the alligators and caimans that live there today. Alligators could likely survive in Africa as their cousins. The crocodiles thrive there. There are plenty of habitats that they could call home, and a diverse range of climates across the continent, some of which would be suitable for them. Tigers are terrestrial mammals that belong to the genus Panthera, a classification that groups the 5 species of big cats: lions, jaguars, leopards, snow leopards, and tigers. They are easily recognizable by their unique black striped pattern on a dark orange coat, and because they are the largest species of the Felidae family. The tiger is the largest of the 5 big cats that belong to the genus Panthera. Fiery and imposing, aggressive and powerful, tigers have aroused fascination in humans through millennia, but they have also experienced threats in their natural environment as a result of human activities. The tigers have anatomy with over 600 muscles and a strong bone structure that makes them apex predators in their natural habitat. They can leap more than 30 feet in a single jump, which gives them an advantage when it comes to finding and attacking their prey. And they evolved from their ancestors for almost 2 million years, continuously adapting to their environment. All tigers are native to Asia and belong to a single species, Panthera tigris, which has 6 subspecies: Bengal tiger, Siberian tiger, Indo-Chinese tiger, Malayan tiger, South China tiger, and the Sumatran tiger. Tigers are ruthless and effective hunters and lonely walkers. Around them, there is a mythology that puts these cats as a symbol of positive values: strength, fierceness, tenacity, and power. Their elegant gait, haughty demeanor, and their dynamic movements are an example of adapted anatomy for hunting. Since tigers are at the top of the food chain, they are considered super predators. Like other big cats, tigers are skilled hunters who make use of different techniques to kill other animals, mainly ungulate herbivores, which are their primary food. When detecting prey, they move very stealthily as close as possible, but at a distance to avoid being discovered. Then they slowly creep towards the prey and jump, taking it by surprise, so it has a small chance to escape. When tigers catch prey, they bite their neck between the vertebrae to break the spine and kill the animal. Although tigers are extremely efficient hunters, they don't always make the kill as you would expect them to. When they can sneak up on the prey, they only have a few seconds to pounce and kill them by biting them in the neck area. They can take down animals much larger than themselves. If you expect to see a streak of tigers, you're not going to get lucky. These cats differ from lions because they usually roam alone. They hunt, feed, and rest without the company of other tigers and lack a defined social structure. However, from time to time, they hang around with others, and evidently, they interact during mating. Tigers have a sociality classification of solitary but social, which includes those animals that look for food alone, are territorial, but can briefly socialize or sleep in similar locations. Tigers are animals that live in South and Southeast Asia, as well as the eastern part of Russia and China. Some live in temperate climates, while others live in tropical environments. Siberian tigers live in cold climates, where it snows. Their heavy fur coat and extra layer of fur on their paws protect them from the cold temperatures. Also, they have an extra layer of fur around their neck that's sometimes called a scarf. This insulates them from the cold even more. Tigers live in different habitats, including swamps, grasslands, deciduous, and mangrove forests. The type of habitat each of the subspecies lives in depends on its species. Malayans live in tropical broadleaf forests, while Indo-Chinese tigers live in hilly, mountainous areas. Bengals live in rainforests, while the Sumatran live in lowland forests and around swamps. Tigers sometimes migrate short distances to find a larger supply of their prey. Also, they may migrate to an area with less snow and warmer temperatures in the cold weather months. As you can see, tigers live far from Africa, the territory of lions. This has led many animal enthusiasts to wonder what would happen if tigers lived in Africa and competed with lions for a meal. The African continent is known for its great diversity of wild flora and fauna. The diverse ecosystems of the continent are home to wildlife species found nowhere else in the world, including some of the world's deadliest animals. Tigers already survive in places like snowy mountains, desert plateaus, dense forests, humid jungles, open grasslands, and quite a lot in between. Even though the tiger's striped camouflage performs best in jungles and forests, the woodlands and savannas of much of Africa would not stop this adept apex predator from hunting successfully. Since most prey species do not see a full range of colors, but more silhouettes and movement, the tiger's hunting strategy actually works reasonably well in a surprisingly wide range of habitats. Chasing prey out on the open grasslands, though, could pose a problem for this cat that is more bulk muscle than lean speed. With most hunts never reaching cheetah speeds, many African predators never need to run faster than around 30 miles an hour. Leopards, in fact, do quite well in all of Africa, with a similar strategy of stalking and pouncing, using smarts and power instead of sheer speed. A game plan that Panthera tigris can definitely get its teeth around. In fact, the whole experiment has already been done. 2 projects, both challenged by ethical or financial issues, have released several tigers into protected reserves in South Africa. The Laohu Valley Reserve Project was created in 2002 by a conservation group called Save China's Tigers. The intent was to nurture and re-wild captive-born South China in South Africa and eventually release them into a protected natural habitat in China. This tiger subspecies is listed as critically endangered and effectively extinct in the wild. Only about 100 individuals are left in the world, all living in zoos or small protected reserves, and all descended from just 6 wild-caught individuals. The SCT project has proven that captive-born tigers can easily learn to survive and hunt wild African prey species, and several purebred South China tiger cubs have been born to the successful group. The Laohu Reserve is now home to almost a full 20% of surviving South China tigers. Creating this ex situ conservation breeding group of tigers outside China has added to the security of the species in the wild, while at the same time has helped to restore a natural biome to a section of South Africa that had been decimated by intensive sheep farming years earlier. Tiger Canyon, also in South Africa, is another fenced reserve and home to a group of hunting and breeding tigers. However, because these tigers are unendangered hybrids, including inbred white tigers, it has no true species conservation value. Acquired through dubious financial means, the project's ethics were further controversial, since the reserve was created solely to make the film Living with Tigers on the Discovery Channel. Though the founder of the reserve was almost killed by one of these tigers in 2012, the reserve is now run as a privately owned, for-profit safari lodge. Despite the controversial conservation value of Tiger Canyon, it has helped the Laohu Valley Reserve to prove tigers can easily survive in Africa. Conflict with native African wildlife and predators could potentially pose problems for any tigers allowed outside these protected reserves, but tigers in places like India and Siberia have proven they are adept at dealing with other large carnivores just fine. It might take a bit of adaptation, but tigers are no slouches when it comes to asserting themselves and thriving whenever given the space and protection to do so. Another hypothetical but interesting option would be for tigers to be inspired by cheetahs and form coalitions. This model of organization could make them the main force of the savannah and could cause serious problems for the lions. Orangutans belong to one of 4 genera of hominids, the other 3 being the gorillas, chimpanzees, bonobos, and humans. They are perhaps most well known for their orange-colored fur, proportionately longer arms than legs, and arboreal lifestyle. They once inhabited the trees throughout Southeast Asia and parts of South China, but now their populations are restricted to just some small areas of the islands of Borneo and Sumatra. Here, we ask the question, why are there no orangutans in Africa? Although other great apes occupy many regions in Africa, and humans are spread across the entire continent, orangutans do not live there. They split from the other great apes between 19.3 and 15.7 million years ago. Today, there are 3 extant species: the Sumatran orangutan, the Tapanuli orangutan, and the Bornean orangutan. Whilst the other great apes thrived in Africa, orangutans were more adapted to life in Asia. They are the most tree-dwelling of the great apes, spending almost all of their time in the forest canopy. Their unusually long arms allow them to swing through the branches, and their feet, which can also grasp vegetation just like their hands, give them the unique movement called quadruminous scrambling. To understand where a species originated from, scientists often rely on fossil evidence to fill in the missing gaps. But for orangutans, this evidence is relatively rare. The habitat in which they lived, and still live, is not conducive to fossil preservation. The acidic soils of the rainforest tend to erode bones rather than preserve them. Therefore, the evolutionary history and paleoecology of orangutans is poorly understood. But there have been known ancestors of the orange ape, and even though fossil evidence of these is often sparse, there is enough to understand at least partly where the orangutan came from. Civipithecus was a prehistoric ape that was similar in size to today's orangutans, but behaved more like gorillas, spending much of its time on the ground. It had an orangutan-shaped face, and is thought by some to be a direct ancestor of today's orangutans. Fossil remains have been found in Pakistan and India, where the species Civipithecus indicus was named. Others have claimed to have found Civipithecus fossils as far east as Lufeng in China, and as far west as Turkey in Greece. This is a vast range, and it was during the Miocene that this prehistoric ape roamed the earth. The climate and vegetation cover was very different across Europe back then. There was a spread of the grasses, and some areas of Europe became more arid. Studying Civipithecus, scientists can tell that it spent most of its time on the ground rather than in the trees. Its teeth consisted of large canines and heavy molars, which suggested that it fed on tough vegetation, such as seeds and savanna grasses. Although today's orangutans are almost entirely arboreal, Civipithecus hadn't developed the physical characteristics for that. Today's orangutans are the only extant species of the Ponghini subfamily. But besides Civipithecus, there were other Ponghini during the Miocene and into the Pleistocene. Others included the enormous Gigantopithecus that lived between 2 million and 300,000 years ago. It has been described as some as twice the size of modern-day gorillas, although others have disputed this claim, suggesting that they were more like 40% larger. Even so, Gigantopithecus, along with other members of the subfamily, appears to have been restricted to Asia, living mostly in the rainforests. The larger species lived lower down to the forest floor. Some only ate fruit, and others were more like today's orangutans, and lived high up in the canopy eating vegetation. Some great apes were very much more diverse and occupied much greater geographical areas than those from the Ponghini subfamily. The restricted range of orangutans and their ancestors made them more prone to suffer from changes to their climate and habitat. With Civipithecus being found across a broad geographical area, from Eastern Europe over to China, it could be the missing link between the African great apes and the Asian great apes. Their fossils that have been found in Turkey and Greece suggest either that they were the first of the great apes to leave Africa and head into Eurasia, or that the great apes never actually originated in Africa. This suggestion has been a hot topic for debate over recent years. Whilst no one disputes the fact that humans originated from Africa, earlier hominids may not have. Recent research by paleoanthropologist David Begin from the University of Toronto revealed that hominid fossils found in Turkey suggest that a common ancestor for today's great apes originated in Europe 8 to 9 million years ago. Andaluvius turci appears to have been a similar size to a male chimpanzee and lived in open savannas and dry forests of the eastern Mediterranean. David Began suggests these ancient apes then migrated into Africa and much later gave rise to the African great apes and humans. Critics of this theory say that it is more likely that the European apes were immigrants into Europe from Africa rather than the other way around. Because fossils as old as Andaluvius turci haven't yet been found in Africa, doesn't mean that they aren't there. Regardless of where the last common ancestor of modern great apes first evolved, how did orangutans end up solely in Asia? This question remains unanswered, but as more evidence comes to light, paleontologists might be able to piece together some of the missing pieces of the orangutan's evolutionary history. What we do know is that orangutans are well adapted and suited to the habitat in which they live today. They are made for life in the trees, and that has taken hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. Between 2 million years ago and 111,000 years ago, orangutans began evolving into smaller individuals. Although today they are considered large, with adult males weighing up to 130 kilograms and 300 pounds, that wasn't always the case. Back then, they were even larger, thought to be twice the size and weight of their modern-day counterparts. During that time, there was a significant change in the Earth's climate. Many other species across Asia, like rhinos and monkeys, were also reducing their body sizes. As the climate became cooler and drier, food sources were more limited, and evolution favored smaller organisms. Those that didn't adapt or change died out. That wasn't the only change to happen. Their geographic range also changed. The shift in climate pushed the orangutans southwards. 2 million years ago, they were found throughout Java, Sumatra, Borneo, Vietnam, and southern China. Then, as the climate altered, so too did their range. But how did they come to survive on just 2 Asian islands? When sea levels were much lower and land bridges formed, orangutans were able to cross from mainland Asia to the islands of Sumatra and Borneo. It is not clear when the orangutans on the mainland died out, but climate change, along with the arrival of humans more than 60,000 years ago, were likely to be contributing factors. Today, only those populations remain as they have been wiped out elsewhere, and they are the only non-human great apes currently living in Asia. Occupying such tiny areas on the globe, all 3 species of orangutan are considered critically endangered. It is estimated that there are a little over 100,000 Bornean orangutans, 14,000 Sumatran orangutans, and just 800 Tapanuli orangutans. The main reason for their sharp and seemingly unstoppable decline is the destruction of their habitat to make way for millions of acres of palm oil plantations. Orangutans cannot survive without their forests. Not only does it provide them with food, but they also live and sleep in the trees. Every night they make nests high up in the branches. They also have an extremely low reproductive rate, which makes coming back from population declines very difficult. Females will give birth to just 1 baby every 3 to 5 years. Furthermore, females aren't sexually mature until they are between 12 and 15 years old, and males are between 18 and 20 years. Baby orangutans are also sold on the black market as pets. The mothers are killed, and the babies are taken away to make money for the perpetrators. Young orangutans stay with their mothers until they are around 5 years old, and won't leave their territory until they are 7. Scientists suggest that, even with billions of dollars thrown at orangutan conservation, these great apes may be extinct within the next few years. There are 8 species of bear alive in the world today. The American black bear, the Asiatic black bear, the brown bear, the giant panda, the polar bear, the sloth bear, the Andean spectacled bear, and the sun bear. They are found across the globe from North and South America to Europe, Asia, and the Arctic, but none is found in Africa. Polar bears and Kodiak bears, a subspecies of brown bears, are the 2 largest in the world, weighing in at 1,200 pounds and standing up to 10 feet tall on their hind legs. They are an impressive sight. In comparison, the smallest bear is the sun bear, found in Southeast Asia. These bears weigh less than 145 pounds and grow to a maximum length of 4 feet. Except for polar bears and the giant panda, bears are mostly omnivorous, as well as eating vegetation, fruit, and berries. They eat small mammals, birds, and reptiles, and some invertebrates. There is an abundance of both vegetation and prey animals for bears in Africa, not to mention a vast array of habitats that would suit many of the bear species. So why aren't there any bears currently living in Africa? Bears did once exist in Africa until relatively recently. The Atlas bear was found amongst the Atlas Mountains in North Africa. They looked like a slightly stocky version of the current-day American black bears, and their range was thought to have stretched from Morocco across to Libya. They were hunted extensively for sport by the Roman Empire. The Romans used them in their gladiator arenas, as well as to execute criminals. They were hunted to extinction in the late 1800s. These bears are the only known species that were exclusive to Africa. Fossil records have revealed a further 2 species of bear that once lived in Africa. Agriotherium and Antarctos were huge bear species that became extinct during the Pliocene. It is thought that they may have become extinct in Africa due to the changing climate and greater competition from apex predators. Except for Australia, bears are adapted to most other continents. Australia split from the main continent, Gondwana, 250 million years ago, resulting in the unique and distinctive wildlife found nowhere else on Earth. Africa, however, still remains attached to Asia, but there are no bears currently living there. Polar bears evolved from brown bears 200,000 years ago and spread north. Brown bears and black bears spread widely across Europe and Asia and crossed into North America via the Bering Land Bridge. From there, the bears could radiate southwards, crossing the Panama Land Bridge and evolving into the Andean bear. Whilst the Atlas bear inhabited the mountainous region in North Africa, it never spread further south. The Sahara Desert could have acted as a barrier to the species, preventing it from increasing its range. However, the fossil of the giant Agriotherium bears have been found in sub-Saharan Africa, but it is thought to have died out from the increased competition. Most bear species alive today are highly adaptable. Not only do grizzly bears eat a wide selection of food, but they can easily shift their feeding behavior to suit the changing environment around them. Spectacled bears inhabit a wide range of habitats from the rainforest, cloud forest, and dry forest to grasslands and coastal regions. Asiatic black bears and sun bears coexist in the wild. Their diets overlap, but they do not outcompete each other as their food sources are plentiful. Perhaps it is the lack of adaptations that prehistoric bears had, which made them ill-suited to Africa. Current-day bears originated from Europe. They have adapted to colder climates. Increased seasonality within Europe was selected for a larger size, which aided in predatory behavior and protection from carnivores, and allowed the accumulation of large fat reserves to survive the harsh winters and dips in food sources. It could be that these adaptations that allowed the bears to thrive in Europe, Asia, and North America were not conducive to the hotter African climate. Polar bears overheat very easily. This is why they move with their notorious lumbering walk. They prefer to ambush their prey rather than chase it over long distances. Similarly, black bears and grizzly brown bears are also susceptible to heat stress. Recently, it has been discovered that both black bears and grizzlies, especially pregnant females, cool down by taking cold baths. They find pools of water and take a dip, dumping heat as they do so. They also lose heat through the underside of their paws. They have a lot of blood vessels in their paws and often lie on their backs, waving them in the air to release heat. Scientists believe that the adaptive behavior of these bears will likely stand them in good stead as global warming takes hold, increasing the temperatures bears are used to. Since bears originated in Europe before spreading east and west, their adaptations were well suited to the northern hemisphere. But what about the Andean spectacled bear? This species inhabits South America in the southern hemisphere. They are found in the hot jungles and the mountainous regions of Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia. They have adapted incredibly well in order to survive and thrive in this climate and habitat. The Andean bear is far smaller in size compared to some of the other bear species. This means that they produce less heat and are less prone to heat stress. They are also expert climbers and often climb to the very tops of trees to escape the stifling heat near the forest floor. In the wet season, there is a significant amount of rain in these forested regions, and the bears can be seen standing in the rain to cool off. Like their larger cousins, they enjoy dipping into the water in order to help regulate their body temperature. Pools of water are littered throughout the jungle, especially during the wet season. Although temperatures in South America can rival those found in sub-Saharan Africa, it seems the Andean bear adapted well to this climate. The two species of extinct bears found in sub-Saharan Africa, Agriotherium and Arctidus, however, perhaps didn't adapt so well. Fossils of these species showed them to be enormous bears. They were considerably larger than today's bears and perhaps struggled more with the heat. It has also been speculated that these giant bears living in sub-Saharan Africa, as well as Europe, were in actual fact scavengers. Their skull and teeth structure were unlikely to support muscles used to catch and kill their prey. Furthermore, analysis of the fossilized bones revealed they ate a vast array of animal species. This is fitting with a scavenger rather than a hunter. Perhaps their enormous size enabled them to scare away other animals feeding on a carcass. Today's brown bears often watch and wait for wolves to bring down their prey and then run in, scaring them away and feasting on the carcass themselves. Often scavengers, however, don't get the choice of cuts of meat. Therefore, feeding a bear of such enormous size indicated that they needed to get additional nutrients from elsewhere. Their jaws suggest they were able to crunch bone. This would have enabled them to get at the highly nutritious bone marrow of a carcass. Although scavenging and consuming this bone marrow could provide enough nutrition for these immense beasts, the arrival of hyenas meant competition for the same meal was high. Better adapted for the hotter, drier climate than the bears, and with the ability to scavenge and even hunt in packs, hyenas had the upper hand. It seems that fierce competition for food and the hot climate may have led to the demise of Agriotherium and Arctidus in Africa. Furthermore, bears of European origin may not have been able to cross southwards of the Sahara Desert. The only bear to have lived solely in Africa, the Atlas bear, was hunted to extinction. It is increasingly important to conserve the species we have on this planet that we and so many other organisms call home, because once they're gone, they're gone. Coyotes, scientifically known as Canis latrans, are distinctive members of the canine family and are native to North America. The coyote is smaller than its relative, the wolf. They originally lived in the plains of western North American territory, but with the decline of their rivals, wolves and cougars, they began to spread across the continent. Today, they are highly acclimatized and widespread throughout the American landscape. These animals exhibit remarkable adaptability, and there are 19 subspecies. Males weigh between 8 and 20 kilograms, or 18 to 44 pounds, and females between 7 and 18 kilograms, or 15 to 40 pounds, depending on the area that they live in and which subspecies they belong to. They can live as individuals, as a pack of relatives, or as a pack of unrelated individuals. With their keen intelligence, versatility, and predatory abilities, they have been able to thrive in a variety of terrains, from deserts to forests. If they are so multifaceted in North America, a particular question arises: could coyotes survive in Africa? To answer this question, we need to examine both the biology of these animals and the diverse geographical conditions of the African continent. The introduction of the North American coyote to the African continent would likely have a significant environmental consequence. Due to the different geographic conditions and ecosystem dynamics, it might be difficult for them to survive in African landscapes. However, as the coyote is adaptable and opportunistic, some individuals might succeed in establishing populations, especially in regions with similar environmental conditions to their native territory. So, let us take a closer look at some of the most important factors. Africa's climate varies greatly due to its vast size and diverse geography. In general, there are several climatic zones, including tropical rainforests near the equator, dry deserts in the north and south, and savannas in between. As a result, it has a rich biodiversity of biomes, from the vast savannas of the Serengeti to the dense rainforests of the Congo Basin. Temperatures vary across the continent, from scorching heat in the Sahara to mild conditions in the coastal regions. Rainfall patterns are also very different. Some areas experience heavy rainfall, while others suffer from prolonged droughts. However, coyotes are known to tolerate a wide range of environmental conditions. Although they could potentially live in different African regions, certain biomes offer better opportunities for their existence. While they may initially struggle in extremely hot or humid environments, individuals with a genetic predisposition for heat tolerance may acclimate over time. Coyotes generally prefer open environmental niches, so terrain such as savannas, grasslands, shrublands, semi-arid regions, and agricultural areas where prey and suitable shelter are abundant may be suitable for them. Nevertheless, areas with moderate temperatures and access to water sources would be best suited for their persistence. These areas provide ample opportunity for hunting and den building, which are essential for their existence and reproduction. Coyotes may have difficulty in densely forested areas or regions with extreme temperatures or high precipitation. These environments may limit their ability to find suitable food and shelter. African wildlife is equally diverse and includes iconic megafauna such as lions, elephants, and giraffes, as well as a plethora of smaller species. Hunter-killer dynamics are complex, with top hunters such as lions and hyenas exerting a significant influence. Coyotes are known for their behavioral flexibility. They can adjust their hunting strategies, diet, and social structures to available resources and environmental conditions. This behavioral plasticity could be an advantage in the face of new challenges posed by the African landscape. One of the most important factors influencing their persistence in the continent is the availability of suitable prey. They are opportunistic carnivores and can hunt different types of prey. Their diet is diverse and ranges from insects, amphibians, reptiles, small mammals, and rodents to birds, and even roe deer. There is also evidence that they can occasionally eat fruit and vegetables, and even honey. This broad palate could serve them well in Africa, where an abundance of potential prey awaits. In African territory, coyotes could probably feed on small to medium-sized reptiles, lizards and snakes, mammals such as rodents, mice, small antelope species, duikers, steenboks, dik-diks, and birds, guinea fowl, francolins, other small bird species. They may also feed on carrion and occasionally hunt domestic animals. Although Africa is home to a variety of mammal species, coyotes would have to compete with native carnivores for food provisions. However, due to their opportunistic feeding habits and ability to utilize a wide range of prey, they could facilitate their establishment in African territories. Depending on the region, these animals could compete with native hunters such as hyenas, jackals, and big cats such as lions and leopards. In addition, human activities such as hunting and habitat destruction could pose a significant threat to their existence. Although there are no direct relatives of the coyote native to Africa, there are similar species such as the African golden wolf or Canis anthus and various jackal species. These animals occupy similar ecological niches and could potentially compete with coyotes for vital supplies if introduced to the continent. Furthermore, coyotes and African jackals share some similarities in terms of terrain, behavior, and size. But whether they would be friends, partners, enemies, or rivals depends largely on their interactions in specific environments. Both coyotes and African jackals are opportunistic predator species that eat an omnivorous diet. They also have similar social structures and often form monogamous breeding pairs or small family groups. With the incorporation into the African continent, there are regions where the ranges of coyotes and jackals may overlap due to human-induced habitat changes or natural dispersal. In areas where their ranges largely overlap, competition could lead to antagonistic interactions. such as terrestrial disputes or direct confrontations over food. In some cases, coyotes and jackals may have reciprocal or commensal relationships with each other, or with other species. For example, both species may scavenge the prey of larger carnivorous predators and benefit from the remains. There are also cases where different canid species, such as coyotes and badgers in North America, hunt together, suggesting that similar behavior is also possible in Africa. There are documented cases of hybridization between closely related canid species, raising the possibility of interspecific mating between coyotes and jackals. In areas where their ranges overlap, hybridization could occur, resulting in hybrid offspring with intermediate traits. In terms of reproduction and population dynamics, coyotes are prolific breeders that can quickly replenish their populations under favorable conditions. If introduced to Africa and given sufficient nourishment, they could quickly build up breeding populations. Their reproductive capacity, with litters up to 12 young, ensures rapid population growth, a crucial factor for survival in new environments. In addition, their social structure, often characterized by flexible family groups, encourages cooperation in hunting and defense. However, their reproductive success is likely to be influenced by factors such as competition with native hunters, disease dynamics, and human activities. As with all large carnivores, the presence of coyotes in Africa could lead to conflicts with human communities, especially in areas where livestock farming is prevalent. Mitigating these conflicts would be crucial for the long-term coexistence of coyotes and local communities. They could potentially utilize niches that have been abandoned by native apex predators, especially in areas where human activities have disturbed natural habitats. However, the potential impact on the ecosystem and the consequences for management should be carefully considered before any attempts at integration are made. The incorporation of non-native species often leads to ecological imbalance and competition with native fauna. In a word, the introduction of coyotes could lead to a disruption of the local food chain due to their opportunistic predatory characteristics. Their presence could also affect the behavior and distribution of herbivores, alter vegetation patterns, and impact plant communities, but also lead to the decline or even extinction of some animal species. Non-native predators can also introduce new diseases or parasites to which native species are not immune. Consequently, they can affect biodiversity, potentially causing cascading effects, and disrupt the delicate balance of the ecosystem, which can lead to unpredictable ecological consequences. Therefore, proper risk assessment and management strategies are crucial to mitigate these impacts. The question remains, can coyotes survive in Africa? Their resourcefulness suggests that they could carve out a niche for themselves in certain environments. However, numerous challenges must be overcome. From competition with native predators to human-induced pressures, adjustments will be crucial, both in the physiological traits and behavioral strategies. Ultimately, the fate of these animals in Africa depends on a balance of ecological dynamics and evolutionary processes. Overall, while there are many challenges and uncertainties associated with the introduction of these animals into Africa, their biological flexibility may allow them to establish viable populations in certain regions of the continent.
Kangaroos are marsupials, which are an infraclass of mammals. Marsupials are unique in that they carry their underdeveloped young in an abdominal pouch. The babies are born after just a few weeks of gestation and continue their development in the pouch until they are strong enough to emerge into the outside world. Kangaroos include 4 species that are mostly indigenous to Australia. These species are the red kangaroo, the antilopine kangaroo, the eastern gray kangaroo, and the western gray kangaroo. Another species of marsupial, the tree kangaroo, inhabits Papua New Guinea. Red kangaroos are the largest in the world. They typically grow over 5 feet, or 1.5 meters tall. Exceptionally, some can grow up to 6.9 feet, or 2.1 meters tall, and weigh as much as 200 pounds. That's 90 kilograms. They can hop on their strong, muscular hind legs, reaching speeds of up to 37 miles an hour. All kangaroos are strict herbivores and can be seen grazing grass, using their thick, powerful tails as a third back leg for balance. They have short forelimbs, which can be used in their characteristic behavior of boxing and wrestling. They also balance solely on their tails whilst they deliver powerful kicks with their hind legs. Males often fight like this to gain access to receptive females and assert their dominance. Kangaroos can inflict serious injuries on people by boxing or kicking them. Attacks from kangaroos, however, are rare unless they are provoked. Whilst kangaroos are mostly endemic to Australia, here we ask the question, could they survive in Africa? To answer this question, we need to consider several factors. These include climate, habitat, and food that would be available to kangaroos in Africa, as well as any potential competition or predators. So, firstly, let's look at the climate. Australia has a range of climates across its 3.3 million square mile landmass. In its center, Australia is a largely hot desert. In the north, mostly savanna, with oceanic and subtropical climates in the east, Mediterranean in the south, and cold desert and semi-arid regions throughout. There are plenty of countries in Africa that would offer a similar climate to Australia. In the north, countries like Algeria, Libya, and Egypt offer arid hot desert conditions, whilst more central countries like Congo and the DRC typically comprise tropical rainforests and savanna. More temperate climates are found in Africa's southern regions. With such varying climates, Africa offers a range of temperatures and levels of precipitation that are comparable to Australia. In an average year, the hottest country in Africa is Ethiopia, whilst the coolest is Lesotho, resulting in lush green rainforests, hot, dry deserts, and everything in between. Now, if we consider habitat, the different species of kangaroo live in different habitats, but they generally stay in areas where there is plentiful vegetation for them to eat. The red kangaroo is mostly found in the rangelands of western New South Wales and within arid and semi-arid regions. The western gray kangaroos live in forests, savanna, grassland, and shrubland. Eastern grays prefer areas with higher rainfall, with plenty of foliage and trees for cover, as well as open plains for feeding. And antilopine kangaroos frequent unwooded plains. Africa offers this kind of diversity, from the vast, open savannas and grasslands of South Africa, Botswana, Kenya, and Tanzania, to the forests and wetter regions found in Africa's eastern highlands, the Congo and Gabon. Kangaroos could survive in many of these habitats. Integrated with the kangaroo's habitat is their food. Considering the preferred food of kangaroos, we know that there would be an abundance across many parts of Africa, especially in the open plains and savannas. Kangaroos are strict herbivores and mostly graze grasses. The red kangaroo also browses various bushes and flowering plants. They graze Australia's open grasslands during the coolness of dusk or dawn, or at nighttime. If we just look at the climate, habitat, and food available across Africa, it is likely that kangaroos could survive. But what about competition from other animals? And what about predators? Australia is home to more than 40 million kangaroos. If they were to inhabit Africa, there may be stiff competition with other herbivores. In Africa, these herbivores include a huge variety of different species, including antelope, wildebeest, zebras, rhinos, elephants, and hippos. With kangaroos grazing or browsing the African savannas and bush, they would occupy similar niches to Africa's native herbivores. Could Africa cope with yet another grazer on its open plains? Probably, but it may create pressure on those animals already found there. This could have a knock-on effect, as each organism, plant or animal, shuffles and readjusts to the changes that the introduction of kangaroos would cause. Furthermore, Australia doesn't have any large land predators. Of course, those in the water include crocodiles and many shark species, and Australia is home to some of the world's most venomous snakes, including 20 of the top 25. But its largest land predator is the dingo. This wild dog was introduced to Australia by Asian seafarers approximately 4,000 years ago, so technically it's not a native species. However, they are well cemented in the ecosystem. Dingoes hunt wallabies, wombats, birds, reptiles, and kangaroos. They can hunt in a pack, making them capable of taking down the large red kangaroos as well. However, before the introduction of dingoes, there were few land predators that Australia's wildlife had to look out for. In southern Australia, there once lived a terrifying marsupial lion that became extinct around 30,000 years ago. They were carnivores weighing up to 290 pounds that had a bite force comparable to today's lions. These animals would have preyed upon kangaroos, especially the giant kangaroos that once roamed the Australian outback. But because Australia separated from the ancient landmass Gondwana 65 million years ago, Australia's wildlife was allowed to evolve into an incredible and often bizarre array of unique species, without influence from too many predators or invasive wildlife. These unique species include, but are not limited to, the duck-billed platypus, the echidna, the Tasmanian devil, the bandicoot, and, of course, the kangaroo. Australia's wildlife is incredibly vulnerable to invasive species due to its evolutionary isolation. For this reason, the Australian government is very strict about what enters the country. This suggests that some of Australia's species wouldn't fare too well in the great African wilderness, where there are predators aplenty. They may not have the evasive capabilities that some of Africa's native prey display. They would have to adapt to a new position in the food chain. Although they can travel up to speeds of 37 miles an hour and can kick with incredible force, kangaroos would likely be no match for Africa's apex predators. Lions, wild dogs, hyenas, cheetahs, and leopards could consider kangaroos prey. These predators hunt the herbivores found on the African plains and in the bush, the same kind of habitats that kangaroos would call home. Kangaroo populations, however, would likely remain stable, despite pressures from predation. A female kangaroo can support multiple babies all at different stages in their development. She can be pregnant with a fetus in the womb, have a second baby developing in her pouch, and be nursing an older baby on the ground. This means that their reproductive cycles are rapid, and females can mother many offspring in a lifetime. In Australia, kangaroos are considered pests. There are approximately twice as many kangaroos as people living in Australia. Because these marsupials graze grassland, farmers consider them competition for their grazing livestock. As far as their ecological impact goes, kangaroos are soft-footed, unlike the hardened hooves of sheep and cattle. As a result, they are less likely to trample vegetation and damage soil. Even so, their large numbers can lead to culls across Australia. Some are farmed for their meat, and with climate change and drier conditions becoming more common across Australia, they may prove to be a more suited agricultural animal than the less well-adapted sheep and cattle. What would the impact of kangaroos be on the African wilderness if they were introduced to the continent? Would they outcompete the other herbivores that call Africa home? Or would they live side by side with the likes of zebra, impala, blesbok, and kudu? There may be an abundance of habitat available to kangaroos across the African savannas, but each ecosystem on this planet is made up of a delicate balance of organisms. Any disruption in this balance could prove devastating. In conclusion, we believe that kangaroos would survive and thrive in Africa. Their adaptability to hot and arid climates and their herbivorous lifestyle would serve them well on the African plains. However, one question remains: would Africa survive the introduction of the kangaroo?
Playing a major character in fairy tales and mythology throughout the ages, the gray wolf, also known as the timber wolf, has been perceived in many different lights, from big, bad wolf to spiritual being. In reality, gray wolves may not embody such extreme vices and virtues, but they do play a vital role in maintaining ecological harmony. Keen senses, large canine teeth, powerful jaws, and the ability to pursue prey at 60 kilometers or 37 miles per hour equip the gray wolf well for a predatory way of life. A typical northern male can be about 2 meters or 6.6 feet long, including the bushy half-meter-long tail, standing 76 centimeters or 30 inches tall at the shoulder. It weighs about 45 kilograms or 100 pounds, but weight ranges from 14 to 65 kilograms or 31 to 143 pounds, depending on the geographical area. Females average about 20% smaller than males. Although they are referred to as gray wolves, these canids actually range in color from solid white, gray, and brown. The social structure of a wolf pack is one of the most fascinating that has ever been observed. They have a very strict level of hierarchy that has to be adhered to by all of the members of the pack. This may sound harsh initially, but it is a method that allows these packs of wolves to be able to survive. The leader of the pack is the alpha male, and his mate is the beta female. Many believe that the social order of a pack is determined by fear and dominance of the one in charge. However, it isn't necessarily established by an attack on one, and the winner is the leader. It is much more complex than that. Through careful research, experts have found that this type of social structure helps to promote unity and social order. It also helps to reduce conflicts and to lower the chances of aggressive behaviors occurring among the members of the pack. The upper level of the social structure doesn't change very often. However, it can a little bit at the lower levels. Living in a pack not only facilitates the raising and feeding of pups, coordinated and collaborative hunting, and the defense of territory. It also allows for the formation of many unique emotional bonds between pack members, the foundation for cooperative living. It is during a hunt where cooperation between wolves within a pack is most apparent. Wolves are opportunists. They test their prey, sensing any weakness or vulnerability through visual cues, and even through hearing and scent. Contrary to ambush predators that rely on the element of surprise and a short, intense burst of energy to secure their prey, wolves are endurance or coursing predators. They chase their prey over long distances, sometimes even a few miles, to find the right animal or opportunity. On the hunt, wolves work together with certain individuals typically carrying out their specific role in the hunt, often based on age, gender, and social standing. The home range of a pack of wolves can overlap with that of other wolves. As long as the food is plentiful, they will usually ignore each other and continue on their way. When food is scarce, though, they may battle to determine which pack has the right to feed there. The average gray wolf can eat up to 20 pounds in a single sitting, but they need to eat almost 4 pounds of meat a day to sustain themselves in normal conditions. That, along with the fact that wolves hunt as a pack, leads gray wolves to focus their attention on larger prey species. In most habitats, gray wolves rely on packs of ungulates, or large hoofed prey animals, to sustain their ravenous appetites. Elk, moose, and white-tailed deer are some of the more prominent prey species that wolves feed on. As opportunistic hunters with large appetites, wolves are reliant on the habits of prey populations for survival. The typical wolf can eat 15 to 20 pack animals in a year, and those numbers can grow impressive when you take into account larger pack sizes. The winter months tend to be the most bountiful for wolves, as it leaves them with more access to weak and undernourished prey, and because wolves often have an advantage over prey when hunting through snow and tundra. Early summer is also a generous time for feeding, thanks to the higher presence of younger prey animals. Wolves also eat smaller prey like hares, raccoons, mice, and beavers, but the necessity of having larger prey to feast on means that the wolf often cover long distances as they follow the migration patterns of their prey. These animals are apex predators, which means that they are at the top of the food chain within their designated territories. Still, they stick together in packs for a good reason. There are plenty of bigger, meaner animals who are willing to consider them as prey. In general, these animals need to watch out for bears and large cats like tigers or mountain lions. When they work together, a pack can take down a polar bear, but a wolf alone might not be so lucky. The actual biggest threat to any wolf is human interaction. They often get shot by poachers, licensed hunters, and farmers who are attempting to protect their livestock. These animals also suffer from climate change caused by deforestation. When humans move in, their territory gets smaller, reducing their prey options and making survival difficult. The human presence is often credited as the reason for the drastic decline in the wolf presence across North America over the last 100 years. As you can see, gray wolves are great hunters and have amazing qualities, but can they cope in Africa among lions, hyenas, and wild dogs? We can't rule out the possibility of wolves surviving in the Serengeti just because it's hotter than the Great Plains or the Canadian Arctic. Plenty of wolves live in similar environments, like in India, Iran, or Israel. Indeed, those three countries have their own subspecies of gray wolves, called Canis lupus pilippe, a small desert-adapted gray wolf that specializes in catching antelope. If placed in the African savanna, gray wolves could evolve into a similar shape if left unmolested. There are several problems with this though. Gray wolves are a highly mobile species and could have colonized Africa long ago by crossing the Sinai Peninsula from Israel into Egypt, but they never have. You may be wondering why they didn't do it. Well, when you're entering a new environment, it is important for there to be a vacant ecological niche for the intruding animal to fill. It just so happens that every conceivable niche a gray wolf could fill has been taken by other species. The big game hunting niche has been taken by lions, spotted hyenas, and African wild dogs. Gray wolves would face competition from jackals, African golden wolves, and Ethiopian wolves even if they tried to lower their ambitions and become garbage-eating foragers. Furthermore, the potential for becoming the lunch of some other predator is far higher in Africa than in any other continent wolves currently inhabit. Let's take lions for example. Other than disease, lions are recognized as the biggest stumbling blocks to the recovery of African wild dog populations, simply because they consistently go out of their way to kill them. Wolves in Russia's Sikhote-Alin region are facing a similar situation, with Siberian tigers decimating their population. If wolves struggle to survive in areas dominated by lone tigers, it would be nearly impossible for them to thrive in an area populated by entire lion prides. Even without lions, there are still spotted hyenas to take into account. Both gray wolves and spotted hyenas actually once lived together in Europe and Asia during the last ice age, and pretty much every paleontological study indicates that hyenas not only fed on wolves, also suppressed their numbers in open plain areas. The only scenario in which gray wolves would actually survive in Africa would be for them to associate closely with human settlements, where they'd eat garbage and hybridize with feral dogs, such as is the case in Italy and Israel. The Komodo dragon, the king of the lizards, is the world's largest and heaviest reptile, named after the island where humans spotted a dragon-like creature for the first time. The Komodo dragon is an endemic Indonesian species found on Komodo Island and its neighboring islands. These wild dragons typically weigh about 154 pounds or 70 kilograms, but the largest verified specimen reached a length of 10.3 feet or 3.13 meters and weighed 366 pounds or 166 kilograms. Males tend to grow larger and bulkier than females. They are incredibly strong and powerful with long, thick bodies, short, muscular legs, and an almighty tail that is used for both fighting and for propping the animal up when it's standing on its hind legs. Komodo dragons have 60 razor-sharp teeth, with the ability to replace themselves if damaged or lost. They can go through 4 or 5 sets of teeth in their lifetime, as they rely on their razor-sharp teeth and strong claws in attacking their prey. If its prey does not die from the attack, they have an even stronger weapon: their lethal venom. Their saliva contains 50 different strains of toxic bacteria, causing an instant and deadly infection in its prey. Komodo dragons can swallow huge portions of meat swiftly. Their stomachs expand quickly and can consume up to 8% of the dragon's specific body weight in a single meal. Once they have killed their prey or found a dead or decaying body, several dragons converge to share the meal together. The largest male dragon gets to eat first, followed by smaller males and females, with the juveniles eating the remains last. Many lizards eat plants, but Komodo dragons are carnivorous and eat almost any kind of meat, scavenging carcasses or stalking animals that range in size from small rodents to large water buffalo. Young feed primarily on small lizards and insects, as well as snakes and birds. If they live to be 5 years old, they move on to larger prey, such as rodents, monkeys, goats, wild boars, and deer. These reptiles are tertiary predators at the top of their food chain and are also cannibalistic. Although the Komodo dragon can briefly reach speeds of 10 to 13 miles an hour, or 16 to 20 kilometers per hour, its hunting strategy is based on stealth and power. It can spend hours in one spot along a game trail, waiting for a deer or other sizable and nutritious prey to cross its path before launching an attack. Most of the monitor's attempts at bringing down prey are unsuccessful. However, if it can bite its prey, bacteria and venom in its saliva will kill the prey within a few days. After the animal dies, which can take up to 4 days, the Komodo uses its powerful sense of smell to locate the body. The Komodo dragon's sense of smell is their primary method of detecting food. Using their forked tongues, they test the air for the scent of warm-blooded animals. They have a Jacobson's organ at the roof of their mouth that analyzes the information from the tongue and signals the direction of the potential prey. Their sense of smell is so acute, they can detect the smell of dead or dying animals up to 5 miles away. Komodo dragons are solitary and powerful predators, roaming territories dependent on the individual's size, covering a distance of around 2 kilometers every day. They are also known to be excellent swimmers, traveling from one island to another over a relatively long distance. Although they are solitary animals, several Komodo dragons will often gather around a single kill. To catch large animals, these lizards sit for hours, hidden in the vegetation, camouflaged by gray-brown skin. Then they ambush the victim with incredible speed and force. Although the Komodo dragon would have once been widespread across many Indonesian islands, they are today confined to just 5, which all lie in the Komodo National Park. The islands of Komodo, Rentja, Gilimantan, Padar, and the western tip of Flores are the last remaining homes for these enormous animals that are most commonly found in open woodlands, along with dry savanna and on scrubby hillsides, and can also be found inhabiting dried-up riverbeds. It is thought that Komodo dragons evolved to be so big on these islands due to the presence of several large mammalian species that have since gone extinct. Today, however, they are becoming more threatened in their natural environments, with the loss of their habitats to deforestation for timber has pushed the last remaining populations into smaller and more isolated regions. Komodo dragons were discovered by Western scientists at the beginning of the 20th century. Since then, they have been an object of observation and have gradually become a popular tourist attraction. In 1980, Indonesia established the Komodo National Park to preserve and protect the endemic Komodo dragon and other endemic species of the rich marine environment, including the orange-footed scrub fowl and the Timor deer. Today, Komodo National Park is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The conservation status of the Komodo dragon has classified them as a vulnerable species. Despite all efforts, the influx of tourism can pose a threat to the environmental conditions of the dragon's natural habitat, interfering with their mating process and resulting in a decreased number of offspring. Moreover, Komodo dragons that live outside of the national park are also at risk due to the quick shrinking of their habitat, as impacted by the increased human population. Possibly the biggest threats for the lizards are the illegal poachers who steal the dragons to sell them at high prices. As you can see, Komodo dragons are extremely strong animals and have amazing qualities, but can they cope in Africa, among many other powerful animals? In Africa, there are giant tree-dwelling monitor lizards that are similar in size to Komodo dragons, but have a more slender build. The Komodo dragon has a more robust build for ground dwelling. As a hunting method, the Komodo dragon uses a combination of venom and mouth bacteria to deliver a fatal bite to water buffaloes on their hind legs, and then wait for them to die slowly. This method is unlikely to work with African herbivores that have evolved to defend themselves against ambush predators. They would probably notice the danger and run away. Although the Komodo dragon is a semi-aquatic and capable swimmer, it is much smaller than the Nile crocodile, which can reach a maximum size of 5 to 6 meters. Hippos are also very large and dangerous, so living in the water could not be a solution. Because dragons are ambush predators, they may be able to kill the zebra and wildebeest that are so common in the area. Even buffalo and giraffes could be harmed by highly toxic bites. The predators, on the other hand, are what will keep the dragons from spreading far. Dragons get much of their food from scavenging, but hyenas and vultures are more mobile and would easily dominate carcasses before the dragons can get enough food. They might even take the kills of dragons that were depending on venom to do the work. Lions would challenge them, and some would probably die as a result of their lack of caution. But lions prefer to hunt at night, and the lizards would be slaughtered while they slept. Leopards would act similarly. Africa is also famous for its temperamental herbivores. Elephants would sense that the dragons were carnivores and attack whenever they saw them. Even with its venom, a Komodo dragon is not nearly powerful enough to bring down the largest of all land animals. Rhinos would also probably take issue with them, resulting in gored dragons, and hippos would certainly attack a dragon given the chance. As Komodo is not a rainforest creature, it's unlikely the dragons could survive in the humid Congo, and nothing that large could make it in the Sahara. So, in conclusion, Komodo dragons would not be capable of making it in Africa.
Cougars are slender, agile, and fierce. There is nothing cute about cougars. They're large, fast, adaptable animals with large claws and powerful teeth. Their paws are large and at the end of long, lithe limbs, lending them a remarkable speed over short distances. They're also skilled at leaping and jumping, and they can swim, although they choose not to unless they have no other option. They're not amazing climbers of trees, but they're good at scaling rocks and mountains with their broad paw pads. The cougar, which is also commonly referred to as a puma, mountain lion, or panther, is the second largest cat in North America. Typically, cougars can be identified by a tan or slightly yellow coat, round face, long tail, and erect ears. Adult males grow to 6 to 8 feet, or 1.8 to 2.4 meters long, and females average 5 to 7 feet, or 1.5 to 2.1 meters. Males typically weigh 110 to 180 pounds, or 50 to 82 kilograms, and females 80 to 130 pounds, or 36 to 59 kilograms. The geographic range of the cougar is the greatest of any large wild terrestrial mammal in the Western Hemisphere. From Canadian Yukon through the US, Central, and South America to the southern tip of Chile. Cougars were extirpated from the eastern and central parts of North America within 200 years following European colonization, except for a remnant subpopulation in South Florida. Cougars live in a wide variety of environments including montane coniferous forests, grassland, swamps, lowland tropical forests, dry brush country, and any other areas that offer adequate cover and prey. They use dense vegetation, rocky crevices, and caves for shelter. Cougars aren't picky about their diets. They'll dine on insects, mice, beavers, raccoons, rabbits, and wild turkeys. Since cougars live in Patagonia's Mont Leon National Park, they've become quite skilled at hunting penguins. Those that live in Florida sometimes make a meal out of a crocodile. In North America, cougars frequently eat deer. In fact, they typically kill one large deer every 2 weeks. These large felines are not generally scavengers, but if a deer carcass has been left exposed, then they may eat it, meaning that the cats sometimes display resourceful behavior. Because of their powerful hind legs, cougars are ambush predators. They are hunters that stalk their victims through the brush and trees before leaping powerfully onto it, delivering a deadly neck bite. The animal can break the neck of its prey with one strong bite and the force of driving its prey to the earth.
Cougars are undoubtedly fierce. They hiss, growl, and scream. They're as large as a human, and they can leap great distances to rip their prey to shreds. There is little about a cougar that can be tamed, domesticated, or rendered safe. They're not friendly or docile, and they can't be enticed into games or befriended by people. They are apex predators, and they are very adaptable to maintaining that status against all the odds. They communicate very little, at least vocally. While mother and cubs might use vocal communication, older cougars rarely do, preferring to rely on body language, scent marking, and simple avoidance. They live alone, keeping themselves to themselves, behave secretly, and hunt only under cover of darkness. They display some activity around the hours of dawn and dusk, but it's rare to encounter a cougar in broad daylight, as they generally spend those hours sleeping and resting in small, hidden places. Male cougars are particularly vicious, as they have more to fight for. They mate with more than one female, defend large territories that often overlap with those of females, need to hunt, kill, and eat more often than females, and do not have the female preoccupation of raising cubs. As such, they come into opposition often, and will sometimes fight to the death over a particular prey animal, female cougar, or path of land. Humans are the biggest predators of cougars, with people hunting them for sport and to protect livestock. People are also the main cause of the cats losing their habitats. In states like Florida, highways are often deadly to cougars. Out in the wild, wolf packs will prey on the cats because they're able to surround the animal and often overwhelm it with numbers. When it comes to a one-on-one battle, the cougar will usually survive the match. Wolves are more likely to affect cougars by dominating the same territory and taking advantage of prey opportunities. The feline is not on the endangered species list, but conservation groups remain unsure about how well the cougar population is doing around the world. In the United States, the only state that prohibits hunting them is California. However, it is illegal to hunt them in Costa Rica, Guatemala, Venezuela, Brazil, and throughout most of Argentina. Poachers target cougars, but the effects of this action on the cat are unknown. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service reports that the illegal animal part trade is a $200 million a year market, and it's growing. As you can see, cougars are extremely strong cats and have amazing qualities. But can they cope in Africa, among lions, hyenas, and many other powerful animals? Africa is the only continent on Earth that harbors living monsters or megafauna. It's the only place on Earth where megafaunal abundance and diversity still exist for real. Given that the cougar thrives in so many New World environments, we think it's safe to say that it would find a niche in several African environments if human interference was minimized. Mountain lions would have their challenges adjusting to the new competition from lions, hyenas, and wild dogs, but we believe they'd try to stick to dense cover, like leopards. So the main competitor of a cougar in this hypothetical scenario would be the leopard. Cougars are heavier than leopards, but leopards will not go down without a fight. Both cats have a varied diet based on deer, fish, snakes, rabbits, foxes, monkeys, and many other animals. They aren't picky about their diets. When there are no fierce competitors around, cougars have been known to kill larger prey. Killing a large elk when there are wolf packs around is too energetically draining. Wolves are always near elk, so if they notice a cougar kill, it's easier for them to swoop in and steal it. As one of their names suggests, they do well in some mountainous areas, and the Atlas Mountains, the highlands of Northeast Africa, and some South African areas would be possible. Leopards aren't common in those areas. Cougars also do well in semi-arid regions, but since there are also leopards in those areas, competition might be a problem. They fill a similar niche there, and one of them is going to be in trouble. The same could be said for the rainforests. Leopards and cougars are unlikely to kill each other because there's more to lose when fighting something as skilled and as big as you. As a result, they'd keep a respectful distance between them. However, Fights would inevitably occur. It is the nature of things. So they'd either adapt to finding specific areas to dominate, or one would hunt during the day and the other at night. The close relation genetically between cheetahs and cougars would mean that they could likely crossbreed, but that would be close to impossible considering cats don't do that in the wild. Although these scenarios are very interesting, they should only remain in the fictional stage. There can only be so many apex predators to an ecosystem, whether there are humans on the planet or not. There would be competition for territory and food regardless of how many prey animals there are. One apex predator species is enough to keep prey animal numbers in check. Mixing different species of apex predators would deplete their prey. This isn't just one animal of each species. These are procreating animals, and the more they are, the less prey there is. Despite conditions like drought, animals are still adapted to the environment in which they are born. There's more to it than just a place to live. Their way of hunting is different. The way they move around is different. For example, tigers hunt alone in jungles. African lions hunt in savannas and in groups called prides. A pride cannot work collectively to kill an animal in the jungle, and the tiger would not be able to use camouflage and stealth to ambush its prey in the savanna. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. You can also leave a comment with what you would like to see in the following videos. Thanks for watching. See you next time.